Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership in the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning. Welcome to Deep Dive Film School.
This week, we are throwing you our punishment review of Paul Verhoeven's Razzie Award-winning Showgirls.
Let's dive into this dumpster. All right, everybody, I am Adam Sherlock.
And I am Adam Pulcher. And if you like what you see/hear, please like and subscribe. Also, if you're part of Joe Eszterhas' family, I would probably turn this off because this is not going to be a great episode for you. But please like and subscribe. We do this every week. So
I think he still has enough money to have us both killed if he felt so inclined.
I think it's Eszterhas. I think that's how you say it. I haven't looked at the phonetic spelling, but sorry, buddy. Basic Instinct, Sliver, solid movies.
Listen, the 90s was your time, though. The 90s was your time, Joe. He's the one. He made it out of this thing scot-free.
I don't know.
He got his millions. He doesn't care.
But the dignity is gone. The lengths that he went to change people's mind about this movie is mind-blowing.
It really is.
I really have to get into some stuff here at the beginning because let's just throw it all out there.
Should we do really quick just like an overview of what this movie is? I'll just do it real. No. Oh, okay. No.
Let's say all the lore behind it, and then we'll get into the movie. Okay. Because there's so much from this movie. Like I said at the beginning, it is a Razzie winner, swept the awards at the time. I think it's been beaten by Jack and Jill since, but it tied Battleship Earth for the 7 Razzies. And
that's a hell of a thing too, because Battleship Earth is insanity. But you're right, he showed up. He showed
up and accepted it in person for Worst Director and Worst Picture.
Again, Paul Verhoeven is an enigma. He is an enigma.
The worst thing happened to me today. I got 7 of the worst awards. And I'm very happy because it was much better, much more fun than reading the reviews in September. Thank you so much.
Like in a Herzogian way, but like not in a good way, like Herzog, right?
No, but I mean that's okay too. Like I mean, I also think that someone like Uwe Boll is a total like he also is an enigma where you're like the guy like fist fought some of his critics. Like it's kind of amazing. Doesn't mean that he's a great director, but boy, I'm glad people like that are on planet Earth because it makes it way more interesting.
So to move on, if we could get past all of this amazing shit, which is going to be hard to do. Pamela Anderson, Angelina Jolie, Jenny McCarthy, Vanessa Marcel, Denise Richards, and Charlize Theron all auditioned for this role. And all would have been better than Elizabeth Berkley. Every single one of them.
I totally agree. Can you imagine if it was Charlize Theron?
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's parts of this movie, weirdly enough, that almost seem like it's like an indie movie. Like it's trying to be an indie movie in the 2000s. But it wasn't quite there yet, and it was cast totally wrong.
Yeah.
Kyle MacLachlan, great actor. An actor I always have admired, is in this movie. And this is his quote after watching the premiere of Showgirls. Can I give it to you?
Do it.
I was absolutely gobsmacked. This is horrible. Horrible. And it's very slow, sinking feeling when you're watching the movie. And the first scenes come out and you're like, oh, that's a really bad scene. But you say, well, that's okay. The next one will be better. And somehow you try to convince yourself that it's going to get better. And it just gets worse. And I was like, wow, that was crazy. I mean, I really didn't see that coming. So at that point, I distanced myself from the movie. Now, of course, it has a whole other life of sort of inadvertent satire. No, satire isn't the right word, but it's inadvertently funny. So it's found its place. It provides entertainment, though not in the way I think it was originally intended. It was just maybe the wrong material with the wrong director and the wrong cast.
So everything. Everything.
But what a quote! What a quote from someone in the movie.
Well, it's like, look, I'm just saying it would have been a perfect flight if the plane would have had gas in it, and it would have been a different kind of a plane, and it would have been different weather, and the pilot wasn't drunk. Then it would have been fine. You're like, Kyle, that's all the parts. That's all the parts of the flight. Like,
I just love how he goes through each thing. Is like, oh, that's really bad. Maybe it'll get better. Nope.
It's all.
Oh wow, that's just bad.
It's all the stages of grief. It's all the stages of grief. Well, and the thing of it is, and I wrote this down, that like Kyle MacLachlan, yeah, I completely agree with you. Like this phenomenal actor has done all this amazing stuff, and I'm like, you know, for a guy notorious at like not getting great performances from actors, David Lynch, you're like, he's David Lynch's dude, and apparently they just have a rapport, because whatever was happening in Showgirls, he has the acting range of like the cable guy in a porn film. Like he has, like, you know, where he just shows up and he's like, heard there was a problem with the cable, you know what I mean? Like it is, he has that.
He's not even close to the worst part of this movie.
No, like, but it's so bad. He has those floppy bangs, and it's so embarrassing.
Some sweet bangs. A source once told Paul Verhoeven that Steven Spielberg had requested a copy of the movie after the premiere. Reportedly, Spielberg stopped halfway through the movie while saying, "Sometimes I hate this town." And as I mentioned last week, Verhoeven says it's the most realistic movie about contemporary America that he's ever made. What? What is happening here? Oh my gosh.
Okay, so basically what we have is the character Nomi. Nomi is our protagonist. It kind of looks like the movie starts in Utah. She's like thumbing a ride, and she gets to Las Vegas, but on the way she pulls out a switchblade.
Oh, don't worry. Yeah, first scene, she gets picked up hitchhiking, and yeah, she pulls a switchblade on the guy. What does she say? Chill, okay?
Yeah.
Like that. And I'm just like, what? Okay, so this movie starts off just kind of like very aggressive.
Yeah.
Now, I think before we get super into this, we have to mention NC-17. Put it up on big letters.
Yes.
And this was like the first promoted NC-17 movie ever.
Yeah,
right?
Where it was like, it wasn't like, oh no, what are we going to do? We got an NC-17. It was like, we went for it. We wanted it. Yeah.
And I still personally, this is a complete personal thing here, but I still personally cannot get over that Jesse Spano from Saved by the Bell did this movie. Not to say anything about the actress herself, I guess, but Lisa Turtle, Kelly Kapowski, totally understand. But Jesse, she's just so conservative and such a rule follower, and I've seen every episode, but now I've seen her vagina.
Yeah.
There's that.
Well, don't you think that was probably the reason why she wanted to do this movie so bad?
It's like
she wanted this reset button on her career.
Yeah. Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter, wanted to do something crazy, so he went to Broadway and did a nude scene, and everyone freaked out because Harry Potter's naked. Right. Now Jesse Spano naked, just as big of a deal as Harry Potter. She only got paid $100,000 for this movie, and her agent dropped her after the movie.
Yeah, and I mean, she had zero career after this. I mean, this basically grounded her career forever.
It was a scarlet letter for her. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Well, and I mean, and like the movie being bad is part of that, and yes, the screenplay is inept and insane. The direction overall makes no sense. The other actors in it are terrible. But man, the movie screeches to a halt every time she is on screen. Every time she's on screen, you are just like she, and I can't tell. And I mean, I feel like it would be very similar if Denise Richards had been in this, because
probably
she gives me the same vibe where I'm like, does she have a lazy eye? Because I can't tell where the hell she's looking. Like, I don't. She just kind of looks off into this vacant middle distance.
Well, she goes off in this, you know, if when the episode when Jessie took all the caffeine pills because she had to stay up. She's like that the whole movie.
I just need one of these.
Pills? You mean you really are taking drugs?
I need them.
Jesse, give me those.
I need them, Zach. I have to sing.
Jesse, you can't sing tonight.
Yes, I can. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And like you're trying to understand why, because like even at the very beginning there's like this weird like she's so just aggressive like for no reason, and it just seems like overacting. And I think Verhoeven's trying to like, we don't know her history, so like kind of giving her a multi-personality, but like pretty much trying to tell us that she has a drug problem, but we don't really know until the end. And so it just seems like, what's wrong with this girl? And this sweet girl Molly, like,
Molly,
tons of red flags. Molly's probably the only good person in this movie. Actually,
she is the only good person in the movie.
But you know, she sees her and she's like screaming and freaking out and trying to break it, like hitting her car.
Yes.
And she's like, "Are you okay?" And then she pukes on her.
Yeah.
And then she starts hugging her, and I'm like, "What?"
And then she almost runs out into traffic and gets dragged back and then hugs her again.
Then she saves her life, and then she throws fries at her, basically, and like gets all pissed off again, and she's like, "Oh, we should move in together."
Totally.
And I'm like, "Hey, do you not see the red flags here?" This girl really catches a break. Nomi catches a break quite a few times. Like, one, she gets a ride all the way there. Two, she lets this girl gets to stay with her. And I don't know. It's just like, wow, okay, well, you're pretty lucky.
So I by the time that she had started living with Molly and working at this strip club that she's working at, I was like, and already we know just through a couple little throwaway lines that whatever name that she's using, Nomi, isn't her real name. She won't talk about where she came from. She's like, I'm from everywhere, and like all this really vague stuff. Now, of course, like that's
Different
going to lead different places. Yes, I'm from different places. So, you know that it's going to lead to some kind of a revelation, but I have to say I really hoped it wouldn't, and that they would leave that open-ended, because if they had, I had this running theory through most of this movie, because this is the first time I'd watched it. This is the first time you've watched it too, right?
All the way through. Yeah, I mean, yes. I don't think I'd seen this from beginning to end ever.
Yeah, I had seen some scenes, but that was it. And this time I was like, oh my God. Yeah. This time I went, oh my God, this is a Las Vegas starman. She's an alien from another planet. And this isn't even the way that the other people are actually acting, but we're seeing it through her eyes. So everything is overly dramatic. And I was like, I've got this thing nailed. And I felt pretty confident about that until like the last 15 minutes of the movie. And then I was like, damn it, Paul. I was going to be like, this thing's brilliant. I get it. I get the secret sauce, because we talked about this when we did Starship Troopers, which is it got panned upon initial release. And I'm wondering, is there some, and I don't believe this is true. I just want to say that really quick. I don't believe this is true, but I wanted to watch this movie because I wanted to know, was there a joke that he was trying to make threaded through this that people didn't get? But I don't think that's true. I think it's just a horribly inept film that I don't understand. I don't understand. Okay. When we reviewed Mac and Me, the clothesline, right? The simple 2-lane clothesline of the story, boy in a wheelchair befriends an alien from another planet, all right? That clothesline is so easy to understand, but then the clothes that were hung on it don't, like, you're like, oh, it's a shirt. And then you get closer and you're like, that's not a shirt. It's got 3 sleeves. And like nothing made sense. All the clothes hanging on the clothesline, like you looked at it and you're like, that's like a thing I know, but those can't be pants, right? Like they're sewn together on the bottom and the top. Those aren't pants at all. Same problem with Showgirls. the most simple, like, Star is Born style thing of, like, the girl from the small town tries to make it in Vegas, and she does.
With the heart of gold.
The hooker with a heart of gold. But then all the clothes that are hanging off of that clothesline, you think you understand what they are, and then you get closer to them and you see more of the scene, and you go, oh, that's not the way that any human being has ever acted, ever. No human being has ever acted like this. And so it does kind of remind me of that.
One other human being has, and you made this comment offline or just in our conversations about this movie before we recorded, and it's Nick Cage in Wicker Man. It's really close to that.
How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned?
I don't know.
Tell me!
There you go. Yeah. Where you're just
it
like...
really is. It truly is, like, really close to that. You're just like, why are you overacting so much? Like, I don't get it. Like,
yeah,
okay, like, I don't know. And then they have these terrible expositions that, I guess it's not terrible, but they're just like, you know, they're gambling at the beginning and she hits it big. All right, metaphor for the movie. And then, you know, and then, you know, that quickly turns to bad luck. And it's like, sooner or later, you're going to have to sell it. And it's just like all this painful exposition of what's happening. And I don't know, you get this glimpse of what it's like to be a showgirl in Vegas, right? And for what it's worth, this movie mostly looks pretty good. That's the one thing about it. It looks fine.
Agree.
Like,
We talk about this a lot through this festival, but I think that this looks much more like Basic Instinct than any of the other movies that we've reviewed of his. It actually looks really slick. There's lots of crane shots, which I think are great ways of showcasing the size of the audience or moving across those big sweeps of the Las Vegas Boulevard. And like, so a lot of that stuff really does look good, you know, and even down to like, I really like the way we move from when she actually becomes a showgirl, the way we move from the backstage and seeing that big treacherous staircase that we know is going to come into play later, and then the camera moves up it and we get these little snippets of everybody's conversations. Those are the moments that feel like a Verhoeven film. Those are the moments that actually feel pretty good. But whatever he was trying to do tonally just missed the mark so far that I don't even know what the mark was, right? I don't even know what he was going for.
Sexy Joe just had a really bad script, is what I'm thinking.
Oh, Sexy Joe. Sexy Joe.
I mean, let's be honest, that's really what happened here. Like, again, this is a movie that Verhoeven that got passed over and rejected by tons of people, but he felt morally obligated to some production people to make this movie because Joe had already been paid $4 million or something for the script, and
which he was writing on cocktail napkins. I don't know if you read that. He was writing it out on cocktail napkins.
And he got like $2 million all like read off.
And if I can just say this, because when we reviewed Basic Instinct, Mark Middlemas caught all of our Joe jokes, right? And he said there's a legend in Hollywood that he was, you know, Joe Eszterhas was paid $4 million just for jotting down ideas for a script on
Showgirls
cocktail napkins.
On a napkin.
Right? And so he got paid for that. And it's this legend in Hollywood. Now, when you don't say Showgirls and you just say that's a thing that happened, you go, wow, man, that's amazing. But when you say it Showgirls, you're like, of course that was written on the back of cocktail napkins. It may have just been stick figures. Like,
it's all over the place. And his direction of his cast, you're just like, what are you doing? Like, I just don't understand. Like, Kyle MacLachlan's fine. Gina Gershon, you know, she's doing her best Gloria Swanson, you know, Sunset Boulevard impression, I think, for the most part. But
it totally is.
We get this kind of fun backstage playfulness of like, oh, behind the scenes, like that's always fun and it's really moving and stuff like that. But you know, we get to this thing that's supposed to be the top of at the Stardust in Vegas. Naked show, and there's not really a reason why it's naked.
For some reason, Crystal Connors, which is
Gina
Gershon's character, which I love when the guy, the big cigar chomping guy who owns the Stardust or whatever, is like, this line, he's like, we could have brought in anyone to the show. LaToya, Suzanne. And I'm like, is that like LaToya Jackson and Suzanne Summers? Like, who's he talking about? But yeah, it's like Crystal Connors, for some reason, it's like they doll up the set so it looks like fucking Starlight Express or something. But then at the end of it, it's just Crystal Connors coming in with her boobs out. And I'm like, and people like lose their mind. Now, I have to say, during this...
The media is there, Adam.
The media is there.
Very important.
If I may, I have to say that the first moment that I got, like, rather than just rolling my eyes at how stupid everything was, the first moment that I felt real deep, rich embarrassment watching this movie and for everyone in it is when they're doing the big number with Crystal Connors and Nomi's watching it, and she starts like reenacting the moves, like standing in the audience, like she's memorizing all of it, which again is why I thought it was Starman, is because I was like, oh, that's she's a perfect mimic. That's why she's going to be so good as a dancer, because she's a perfect mimic. The alien is a perfect mimic, but she's doing like the moves, and it's like no, don't you see, like she's really talented, right? And we get a
She
reinforcement.
picks it up quick.
Well, we get a reinforcement of that when she goes out to the dance club, and she starts dancing at the dance club, and one of our next main characters, James, shows up, and he's the bouncer, but he's also like a dancer, and he is willing to lose his job because he's like, I gotta go dance. But the first one's like, I gotta go dance with this girl. I gotta go dance with this girl, right?
She's too naturally talented.
Listen, Palcher, she burns when she dances. Don't you realize that? She burns.
Life sucks. Shit happens. Where'd you get this stuff? Off T-shirts? and the answer is Sexy Joe is a yes, he did.
Yes.
Because he didn't have anything. He had the screenwriter die like in full effect here, like the 20-sided die.
Let's talk about the owner of the strip club that she works at. Did you place him?
The Fratelli?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the Fratelli.
He's the Fratelli that always sings opera. Yes. Yep, he's the creator face guy.
I knew that right away.
Man. And just as a passing thought while we're talking about the strip club, even in
have you ever been there?
No.
Been there.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Even
Probably
in
because of this movie.
Even in pre-COVID times, don't lick the pole. Don't ever lick the pole.
Why?
I mean, dude, that's like Grand Central Station for herpes. Like, don't lick the pole. What are you doing? Oh God. And I love my last thought on the strip club scene. Again, to go to the directing here, when Nomi gets up and starts dancing around and licking the pole and all that, for some reason, the music backing her is it's a little too quiet. And so the groans and oohs and ahs and lip smacking and thigh swishing and kissy noises that she does when she's up there almost makes it into like one of those YouTube shreds videos where it's like they replace the guitar solo with somebody playing really poorly.
Yeah.
Like it's like overdubbed in this way that when you watch it, you're like, oh God, oh no. It's so
Let's
bad.
just say she's a way better dancer than she is an actress, I think.
That's fair. That's fair. And that's also not saying much.
No, it's not. Gina and Kyle are big cokeheads too. They show up at the strip club, and and you know, it kind of seems like, you know, Gina Gershon, Crystal, you know, she's like the big star. She was the one being interviewed by the media. The first thing. Yeah. And so she's a big star in Vegas terms, I guess. And it seems like she kind of has like a crush on her through most of the movie, but not really. But yes,
well, she's like
her.
I think it's both. I think she's attracted to her, and I also think she's a sadist because she really gets off on kind of continuing to put her in her place over and over again, which is why they go there to begin with, is so that she can give a lap dance to Kyle MacLachlan, who in this scene is Zach has got, like, he must have already tried on the black Spider-Man suit from Spider-Man 3, because he's like in his like black buttoned all the way up and his black hair down. It's like he has his My Chemical Romance CD in the car, and
he's also wearing that suit because there's no way he didn't get a boner during that scene.
Oh yeah, totally. Well,
that is a boner repellent suit.
I'm pretty sure he finished. I'm pretty sure because it is like the most like awful
so much
lap
grinding.
Dance. So much grinding. There's no way. And again, this goes to, and I don't want to I don't want to get graphic here, but I'll just say that the sex scenes in this movie, and even the simulated sex scenes like this backstage lap dance that he gets, in the same way that when we watch something like Wicker Man and we're like, that's not how people act. People act like that. Like, people don't act like that. I also wanted to just like, the question that kept coming up to me was, does Paul Verhoeven have kids? Because this movie makes it seem like he's never had sex with a woman before and doesn't know how it works. Because there's no way that the sex scenes in this would ever be enjoyable. Like, this wild, like, writhing, like, slamming against each other. And the way that she's slamming against him while he's, like, fully clothed. I'm like, there's no part of that. There's no part of that that can possibly be pleasurable to Kyle MacLachlan's character. There's no way. And he's like, oh, that was fantastic afterwards. And I'm like, was it? Was it? Because I think that you almost started a fire. Like, just the amount of, like, friction against fabric. It can't be good.
To her credit, she didn't have any fabric on. And it was
I guess that's true.
Yeah, look, we get full Jesse Spano. We see the whole Spano.
What year is this? Yeah, we see full Spano. What year is this movie?
97-ish.
And what year was Basic Instinct?
92.
So you go in the span of 5 years, we go from what? 2 frames of a vulva between legs switching, right? And like the world loses its mind. And now after this movie, I feel like a gynecologist. I'm just like, okay, yes, the female form is incredibly erotic. Can we talk about something else? Like, this is too much.
Adam, dancing ain't fucking. All right? Everyone's got AIDS and shit.
Bitch, I'm telling you the truth. That's the last part of that line. You did that. You said, he says, everybody got AIDS and shit. The last line after that is, bitch, I'm telling you the truth. Now, I wrote this down. I want to know.
Their relationship is so weird. Her and James, through most of the movie, like, he kind of stalks her a little bit.
Yes.
But he also turns out to be more scummy than we kind of think he is. But at least for a little while, he was like a good love interest. And like, it was one way that the only time she wasn't really aggressive, but he like wants her to become a performer, and she does in a way. So I don't really understand why he's so pissed. But outside of being naked,
he wants her to become his performer. I think, right? Yeah, he doesn't want her. He wants her because what he wants to do is do this like. Well, he's stuck between 2 things. He really, really wants to like have sex with her and all the other girls that he works with. But he also like wants to be an artist and like has written this entire dance repertoire, which we see later. And I will say, even though it's also weird and awkward and doesn't work, it's also, in my opinion, the best part of the movie. It's the most interesting part of the movie. I think that I think their relationship and sort of where that goes, I think is actually like pretty interesting. And you could see that there's potentially a movie there. Right,
but it never got good. We kind of never went back to it in a great ordeal. Like, it became more about her becoming a star.
Totally. Well, and I like when she does go back and talks with him. Well, first, like, you know, he's like, "Baby, I wrote all this music for you," right? And then he's like, he's used the same line. They don't have sex because she's on her period, and that's a horrible scene.
Which is the one scene that everyone who has seen this that I hadn't told me about. They're just. Why? And, you know, when they were telling me this, I was thinking the guy said it. I didn't think it was her who said it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, man.
Yeah, you're like, oh, did a man write the screenplay? So she
Sexy
leaves.
Joe.
Yep. So she leaves, and he ends up betting the other girl from the club, and he's told her also, I wrote all these songs for you. Mm-hmm. But then what happens is much later, she goes and sees James and this girl, and it's so sad because they're at the strip club, but he's trying to do his dance routine, and he's just getting booed off the stage because they're like, what is this crap? Like, we don't want, nobody wants cats. Like, we want to see these girls take their clothes off, right? And so it's like, and so he gets down and he's bummed, but that's when you find out that he's asked the other girl to marry him because she's pregnant. And there's this fun little tension there where you can even see, like, that she's going, oh, that could have been my other life, or that could have, you know what I mean? There's this little bit of regret, or I don't even know what it is. And James is great because he just like shrugs and he's like, yeah, shit, man, what do you do? All those dreams are over now. And I was like, oh, that's actually kind of interesting. But then it steers right back away from it into this other part of the story that is terrible. And I wrote this down right around this time, which is, this movie is like Saturday Night Fever meets Pretty Woman meets All That Jazz meets Flashdance meets a dumpster. What do you think?
Well, it's no red shoes, if that's what you're getting.
It's fair. It's a fair assessment. That's your full review. It's no red shoes. Adam Palcher, Deep Dive Film School.
Go watch The Red Shoes. I promise. Watch that 20 times before you watch this. Yeah, no, that's a really good summation of what's happening here. I love the all that jazz because there are moments that remind me of parts of All That Jazz. For sure.
I love the gay guy who's like the assistant dance instructor.
Oh yeah.
He's the stern taskmaster who's like, double check that pelvic thrust. Get it up here. Get it up here, ladies.
Thrust it.
And his face is right next to her crotch. And you're just like, oh my God.
Well, and we forgot to introduce the producer of the show. He's a prick. He likes being a prick.
Yes.
He's basically giving these poor girls complexes, like, show them your tits and put them on ice and all this stuff.
Yeah, and the one girl got her ears,
though, don't get me wrong.
got her ears fixed, like, because he told her to, and like, yeah, all of those kind of like moments. I just think,
yeah.
Well, and I think those are moments that if this movie hadn't been as bizarre as it is, those moments could be really fun. Because I actually love when the guy's going down the line giving all the girls complexes, and he gets to Nomi and says, well, what do you see? And she's like, I see you being a prick. Right? And he's like, she can stay. And I was like, it's in here. Buried way deep inside of this is a movie, but this isn't it, like it's I think that there's, what's the Bender line from Breakfast Club where he's like,
you see, I'm not sure if you know this, but there are two kinds of fat people. There's fat people that were born to be fat, and there's fat people that were once thin, but they became fat. So when you look at them, you can sort of see that thin person inside.
Yeah,
that's sort of like this movie. It's like way deep down inside of it, you could see parts of this that could potentially work. But what it's covered in is so insane that you can't unstitch it. It doesn't make any sense.
Let's get to the relationship between Crystal and Nomi here, because Crystal's kind of set up this whole thing where she goes to audition and she makes it, and she's always kind of lurking in the background, seemingly doing the sadistic stuff you're talking about. Just seems like more than anything just fucking with her. And she pressures her or tricks her into going to lunch, and
yes,
Nomi gets so defensive and antsy whenever anyone asks her about any sensitive information, and it's just so weird. Like, ooh, did something actually happen back home? I wonder what happened. She must have.
What could it be? Yeah.
But then they bond over eating doggy chow as a kid, and I'm like, what? That's That's where the dice rolled, Joe? Was doggy chow? What? Like, the two major characters, that's how they bond, is over that? And,
well, and then they have champagne.
And then, I like having nice tits.
Yeah. And then they go and they have a dance-off. So they go all the way back and have a dance-off just so that Crystal can call her a whore. I'm like, that was your plan? Like, your plan was to, like, get her to the point where she was ready to have sex with you, and then you called her a whore, and so she'd leave, and then you were like, "Ha, my plan worked perfectly." And I'm like, "What? Why? You hung out with her you wasted a whole day with her."
And then we get this random side story of the sexting with the trade show and dancing on the plane, and you're just like, "What? What's happening here?"
Well,
like,
and apparently
everyone's in on this.
Apparently, Joe and Paul, if we can call them Joe and Paul, together did a bunch of research by talking to a bunch of girls in the industry, and that all of these. I'm sure
that's what they were doing. Come on, girls, come on in. Got a few questions for you.
Yeah, I'm sure that. I bet that Joe's just more of like a cuddly, fatherly figure to those girls.
Well, as much as Al. As much as Al from the strip club, who's the boss, who comes back when she's finally made it, and in a semi sentimental moment, says like, "Must be weird that they don't come on you now."
Yeah. Well, like, or then the two guys are talking backstage, and he's like, "She looks better than a 10-inch dick," and you're like, "Is that?" Oh, that old saying. You know that old saying.
I do love that girl that lady who kind of runs the show at the strip club and comes back and says it's her mom. She's awesome. She is awesome.
Yeah,
I would go see her in Vegas.
She's very funny. She's very funny. So the first thing that happens is Agent Cooper takes
Jesse Spano.
Takes Jesse Spano back to his house so they can have the most realistic sex in a swimming pool you've ever seen. Again, like, does Paul Verhoeven have kids? Because, like, that's not how, like, listen, okay, sex does not work the way that it does in Basic Instinct, but at least you can suspend your disbelief enough to be like, sure, okay, it's movie sex. But like, this, I don't even know what they're doing.
Are they only staying on it long enough because they have an NC-17 rating? That's the only reason I can think of. Like, what are you accomplishing with it?
I don't get it. A lot of waves. It's like she's one of those flippers at a wave pool. She's accomplishing a ton of waves, but that's the only thing. I have to go back to this thing where I'm like, this would make so much more sense if Nomi was Starman. If she was just an alien, then, like, of course, like, Kyle MacLachlan's character's like, oh my God, I've never had sex like this in my life. This is insane. How could this be pleasurable to any human being? And it's because she isn't, right? She isn't a human being.
Love it.
So let's talk about the topless motorcycle scene. This is probably like, she's almost having these like on stage physical fights with Crystal, right? Where they're like, they're almost like, they're like talking shit like through their gritted teeth to each other in these scenes. And I was wondering if one of the things that Verhoeven was trying to get across is like to make the nudity not erotic anymore. Like to make it into something so utilitarian that we stopped noticing it. Because it feels so overdone, right?
Maybe that was the joke that we were looking for, was that it's non-sexual.
Well, it's like, well, like I said, I feel like I'm a gynecologist. I feel like I've just like seen way too many naked people that it's desensitized you.
Yeah, for sure.
Through the movie. And I'm going, I wonder if that's part of the point, is that, and it's right after this scene where they're really going at each other in the topless motorcycle scene, when she pushes Crystal down the stairs. So again, these stairs are a great sort of MacGuffin that have been sitting there, or not the MacGuffin. It's Chekhov's gun. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Okay. It's Chekhov's gun. Where it's like, we see it. And we see all those stiletto high heels going up and coming down it. And we're like, boy, if somebody fell down that, and we don't see somebody fall down that, we see Nomi basically drop kick Crystal off of it. And it's rugged. It's a pretty nasty fall, and it breaks her hip. And so she's out. And so now they're all like, what are we going to do without Crystal Connors? How are we going to keep our show? They come for Crystal.
Yeah, she's the show now. She becomes that person I was talking about a few minutes ago, where she's the new Crystal, and she's the one being interviewed, and she's the one on the billboards now, and she's become the star that we never thought she was gonna be, Adam.
Never in a million years. Now she's
such a star. She's such a star that she has a party that has her name written in fireworks on it.
That's right. That's when you've made it. That's the 90s. That's the 90s equivalent of the robot butler.
Totally. It's the excess of the 90s and the blind self-fulfillment of Vegas. Right?
Yes. It's perfect. Yes. Now,
sad.
I will say, I think that maybe and I don't mean this ironically, I think that maybe the most interesting and best scene in this movie, it's very short, but it's actually after she's kind of become this huge star, and Molly is
so it's
pretty
not the rape
sure.
Scene.
Oh, I know. We're getting to that. Hold on. Buckle up for that, you guys. But Molly is pretty sure that Nomi pushed Crystal down the stairs, right? She doesn't know for sure, but she's like, I think you did this. And they're starting to feel really separated in this way. And it's right after one of Nomi's big parts, and now she has Crystal's old separate dressing room, right, in the back. Yep. And she's trying to convince Molly to come with her to this party tonight because this
Andrew Carver's there.
Andrew Carver, who, again, I think in a nice way that Verhoeven does. I think in that same way of his exposition, like, it's just this. Like, at first I was like, oh, this is funny. Like, Verhoeven created, again, much in the way he does with world building, he created like a fake pop singer who's like a Vegas singer that's like this kind of Fabio looking dude, right?
But I agree with you that Molly knows she did it, right? And she lies to her, and she knows she's lying to her. Mm-hmm. And that's really interesting. But then she just was like, whatever, I want to see Andrew Carver.
Well,
and that turns out to be the worst idea ever.
Definitely,
Yikes.
but I want to talk about that scene for just a second because, and this is, again, this goes to my Starman argument. Because when Nomi has gotten off the stage and is talking with Molly, and they kind of get into an argument, but then Nomi is trying to, like, sort of seduce Molly into going, like, no, don't you know you're my best friend? And you see the two of them looking at each other, and Nomi looks like a space alien. Her hair is done up into those crazy box braids that are like a whitish blue color or something. And her face is all like orange and pink and like so much crazy makeup, that they make them wear. Like, she does look like she's completely changed. And in that moment, I was like, see, there again, I got this glimpse of this better movie inside there where I'm like, oh, now she's going to tempt the one innocent person to go with her to this awful party, right? And she's become, it gave me, there was this real devil's advocate kind of vibe in that moment of like, oh, this is some Dante's Inferno level stuff here, right? Which if Verhoeven had pushed further into that and had better actors, there's a possibility that some of that messaging could have really shown through, but it just never got there, right? But that one moment I was like, oh, that's cool. I can see it in the visuals that, like, she does. She looks like a crazy space alien. And she's like, don't you know you're my best friend? And I'm like, you aren't anybody's best friend. Like, you're crazy, And I thought, like, that was a really interesting little moment. But, and then we go to this party and it gets cartoonish again. But, like, one of the worst things to happen in a Paul Verhoeven movie happens. Do you want to take the reins on this thing?
I don't even know how to. This came, like, so out of left field. Like, I mean, I kind of went through it already. You know, she lies to her, and you know, all's forgiven because she wants to see this hot guy that she likes, who's a singer.
Yep.
And again, that turns out to be the worst idea ever. Very quickly.
Because not only it's not just that it isn't just that Andrew Carver forces himself on Molly. He's like making out with her and being sweet, then just randomly starts smacking her around, and then his bodyguards come in and he has like a gang rape with his bodyguards and her, which, like, I gotta say, like, not to minimize how horrible that is, but what was his plan? Because then she just comes down into the party like bleeding and falling over and making a huge scene, and I'm like, if this is his MO everywhere, which later we find out from Kyle MacLachlan's character it kind of is, I'm like, no one has said, hey Andrew, I know that this is your thing and you're such a huge star at the Stardust that we'll cover up all of your, you know, gang rapes that you want to do with your coworkers. He's not exactly, it's not like you're like, oh, this guy's been getting away with this for 20 years. Right? It's like,
yeah, I don't even know. It's hard for me to even talk about it. That was so uncomfortable. And it really only lasted like 30 seconds, but he's like licking her face and like, you're just like, what is happening? Like, what? Like, why is this in here?
It seems like it would be like a dream sequence, right? Where you're like, oh, that didn't really happen. Like, because it's so outrageous. Yeah. That it's like it doesn't really make any sense. So then, of course,
in retrospect, all of this is outrageous, but that's like a step too far. Like it went too far.
I mean, that's like a level of like, and then she took off her dress and she had wings, right? Where you're just like, okay, where are we at in this movie? And then we kind of get her whole life story once Molly gets to the hospital and said, "Where are the cops? Are the cops coming?" And he's like, I don't know, Pollyann. And that's right.
As a I was just like, Jesus, because this was a throwback to the producer say, "Hey, Pollyanna," and she's like, "What did you say?"
Yeah.
And she actually is Pollyann. Oh, terrible, Joe.
Well, and the thing that bums me out the most is it blew apart my whole she's an alien theory.
Yes, it does.
And there's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot return on that either. It's just like, oh, she was a hooker, and she
had dead parents. Like, she's a foster kid. The whole 9 yards. All the stuff.
Name a cliche. That's what's going on.
Basically, roll the dice.
Now I will say that this kind of, you know, as silly and stupid as this, like, we need to call the cops, like, Andrew needs to be charged, and Kyle MacLachlan's character is like, no, like, he's part of the show, he's part of the crew, like,
he's part of the family.
This is what he does. You just got to let him do what he does. So never introduce him to any of your friends again, right? And so what she decides to do is she decides to go after Carver herself. And again,
she does some Eileen Werno shit here.
Again, there is a glimmer of a better movie in here, because when she shows up, I love her look. I love the weird high makeup. I love her hair up. Her nipples are painted that weird color, and like she again comes in like almost this Amazon like warrior and just fucks him up. And I was like, again, I got this glimpse of a better movie in there where I'm like, it could have been a whole thing about how she's like going to avenge all the girls that she meets in Vegas. It could have been this badass movie, right? Like, but that doesn't happen. This is just the only little bit of redemption that she gets for Molly in this moment, and then goes in and whispers to Molly, you know, I kicked the shit out of Carver or whatever. And I'm like, like, it's just too little too late. But again, it's just this little glimmer where, again, the way she looks, what she goes and does, I'm like, that's cool. It's not, doesn't help how horrible this movie is, but like,
they had to end it somehow, and she was an alien. I love that your
it would have been
it would have been a better movie if she
would have been a better movie, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be like Under the Skin or something like that. But like,
Why?
Why? No, this movie is truly terrible. It has some small redeeming moments and small redeeming qualities to it. But then you just have this bookend with the same fucking dude that picks her up. Yep. And I'm like, what? Oh, wow. Just like terrible.
And you're like, and then as they're leaving, her face is up on the billboard, and I was like, so it's been like, how many months was she in Vegas? Like 6 months, 8 months, and she became the biggest star, and then like
now she's
almost killed a guy and then left.
Nope. I assume she killed him. I don't know. Yeah, I'd rather watch Boogie Nights for the 20th time.
I mean, but I do think that there is something to that. Like there is something important about the. I don't know the right. I'm going to use the word volume. There's something important about the volume to which you fail, right? Like if you just kind of fail, like if you try to make an action movie and you accidentally make like The Transporter and you're like, well, that was corny and it wasn't as good as we wanted it to be, but people can watch it and get a kick out of it, but then it just kind of like, it's that, right? It's just this thing. But if you can fail on a level like Showgirls, like not right now, don't get me wrong, but like a year from now, if we were hanging out with a bunch of friends and we were drinking and we were just like kicking back and like, I'm bored, I don't know, what do you want to do? Like, I don't know, and you just turned your TV on and it was the beginning of Showgirls, I would get so excited to watch the whole thing again.
No doubt. Like Kyle MacLachlan, like Kyle MacLachlan said, it serves its purpose. It's entertaining, maybe not for how we originally thought, but it still does.
It was it created something. It created
for
something.
Sure. There's a world out there of people who defend this movie and think it's a masterpiece.
And there's a whole world of people out there that watch this the way that people watch Rocky Horror Picture, where they yell out the lines, they get up and reenact certain scenes, and like, don't get me wrong, I would love to see that in person, right?
It's
if
like
you could go to a midnight
The Room
showing,
or Leprechaun or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
it's like it fails on this level where you're like, I don't even know. And I guess it would be, and that's the thing about Wicker Man. There's more of Neil LaBute's films I don't like than films of his I do like. So seeing Wicker Man as a massive failure, I'm like, that's just funny to me. But Verhoeven seems smarter than this. I don't know how else to say it. Not smarter. He seems savvier than this, right? Like he has so many like tongue-in-cheek jokes in his films, and like gets away with so much nuance of obnoxiousness that totally works. That for this to fail so spectacularly is kind of brilliant in its own weird way. Like I'm glad it exists exactly the way that it does.
Yeah, and he's apologized to Elizabeth Berkley and totally blames himself for the failing of her career, which he probably should. He should have probably paid her more than $100,000.
Yeah, I think maybe I think he at least owes her a small house, maybe on a beach somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he did that for us. Well, there you go, folks. There's our hour-long review of Showgirls in 2020. You're welcome. I know you want it.
Listen, you said the same thing about Basic Instinct, and that thing's doing great. You're like, no one's clamoring for a review of Basic Instinct, and I'm like, my God, they are.
They are. Oh my God. But that's the joy of doing the show. We can do random weird shit and have fun with it, and have that discussion about a true piece of art like Showgirls. So if you followed along, thank you very much. Thanks for playing. Please like and subscribe. If you guys comment, let us know what you think of Showgirls. Is it Paul Verhoeven's best movie? Tell me down in the comments.
It's not.
Spoiler alert, it's not. I hope we get some Showgirls truthers out there, though.
I do too. That would be fantastic.
Please come at us. I would want to read those comments. But thank you very much, everyone. Deep Dive Film School. We will see you next week. We haven't talked about our next festival, so we'll figure that out, and it'll be a surprise.
Yeah, it's a surprise to us. Thanks, you guys. Bye. I saw that thing that you commented on online about the remake of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yeah.
Starring Kevin Hart and Will Smith. Is that right?
That's right.
So I'm assuming Will Smith is doing Steve Martin's part.
That's what I would guess.
And then Kevin Hart.
I'd love him to flip it. That would be interesting.
I just want to, well, I want to see Kevin Hart in a fat suit, I think is what I'm going for.
Is Eddie Murphy directing? I didn't know that. I missed that part. Yeah, I don't know what to say because I'm just thinking in the realms of comedic talent, John Candy and Steve Martin are pretty hard to hold a candle to. So I'm already putting it up against something impossible, but like,
yeah, I mean, if you got two of the biggest hitters in comedy right now to do something like that, it would still be a bad idea. let alone those two. Like,
yeah,
I can't think of
I don't
what's
know.
the last thing that Will Smith did that was funny.
Well, I mean, depending on who you talk to and their age group, Aladdin was probably really funny for some people.
Yeah, that's
for
probably
me. It was
true.
funny in the wrong way, kind of like this movie we're about to review. But actual funny, like that's the thing is like, yeah, he's had one-liners in Independence Day and a bunch of other movies,
Right.
and he's done a bunch of dramas, but haven't like Bad Boys, I guess, is comedy. Men in Black is a comedy, but like
That one, Men in Black, was pretty funny. I think the last movie of his I found to be really funny was the last 5 minutes of that movie where he tries to kill himself with a jellyfish. Was that 7 pounds or whatever?
Yeah. I was gonna say that it's a joke, and that was actually your answer.
Listen, that part's the fact that that's what that part of that movie is really funny.
I thought it was gonna be the one about concussions and NFL players. That was...
It's a dark take.
Yeah, yours was way less dark than mine.
Well, at least mine wasn't based on a true story.
The 7 pounds is based on a true story?
No. The concussion.
Yeah, that's true. I'll give you that.
I mean, you would have heard about that if that had been based on a true story. Like this,
I don't know. People do wild shit I don't hear about all the time.
That's fair. That's fair.